Hello, welcome back to Crypto. My God, the markets are in a panic because there's an all-out trade war. YOLO, baby! Anyway, I feel like I posted something really downer yesterday. I want to talk a little bit more in the exciting technical camp, something that is both bearish and bullish at the same time. If you're in the industry, you've known about it. If not, you might have no clue. It's called Berachain. It is a new EVM, so Ethereum Virtual Machine Compatible Network with some of the strongest branding in the space. It's lots of fun, and it's attempting to take proof of stake to the next level. Let's get into it. Now, our story starts back a long time ago in the previous cycle when JPEGs were all the rage and NFT collections were the thing of choice to trade. Out comes this, I gotta say, pretty fun project called the Bong Bears. And you can see they're like a wide variety. We got a Squirtle bear here, and they're chill. They got vibes, they got munchies, and they got bongs. They took these vibes with them. They created an amazing community. And now they're even testing the concept of proof of stake. So first and foremost, their branding is something to be emulated. This is a masterclass in how to create a consistent aesthetic and vibes that can be leveraged for further growth. We start with the website, right? It says up only, and you actually scroll upwards. I think it's small, but it's brilliant. As you scroll, very fun, very modern. It's an EVM identical L1 aligning security and liquidity powered by proof of liquidity. However, it is compatible with all Ethereum-based applications, so there is a really nice opportunity to take the tech that's already been built and port it over to here. Now, what they're really looking at is this concept, proof of liquidity. Proof of stake is something that I've always thought was very interesting, but when you're able to buy an asset and just sit on it as a stake very passively, it's hard to understand how this doesn't consolidate the holders and just make the rich richer. I have always been very pro Bitcoin in the sense that I think the electricity, the fundamental property of the universe that goes into Bitcoin mining, is where Bitcoin derives its value. It's harder to make that position against proof of stake. However, there is a novel concept to the economics behind it and how low the energy requirements are. Now, Berachain came and said, hey, let's take this a step further. If all of that stake consolidates, we have this wealth accrual mechanism, and it's not being put to good use. It's not growing the ecosystem. The capital sits idle to validate the blocks, but this is not helping application growth. And that is the core concept behind this proof of stake. Of course, as we see here with this airbender bear, we can see that proof of stake systemically builds liquidity. And one thing to keep in mind, in a crypto economic system, we are merging technology with the financial markets. So you need both bandwidth, as in transactions per second, block time confirmations. That all needs to be fast, right? Or you're not going to get the compute requirements that people are used to for a Web 2-like app. Now, when we move that over to the financial world, value needs to be able to flow. It needs to move. In order for this, it requires liquidity. You can think of liquidity as the monetary bandwidth similar to the data bandwidth handled in transactions per second, blockchain confirmations, all that fun stuff. So systemically build liquidity, solve stake centralization. I previously covered that, and align protocols and validators. I actually think this is a very fun part that we'll get into just in how it gets people to work together. The core principles here, defragmenting liquidity. Again, these silos happen in previous proof of stake mechanisms. Turbocharging applications. They have a really cool way to do this. Highly accessible, right? It's an EVM identical blockchain. So if you've already built apps, you can bring them over there. And just taking a quick look at Project Spotlight, we've got next generation lending protocol, Honey Chat, which is a native chat app built on top of the protocol itself. I think that's novel and really fun. Infrared, easy to use liquid staking, liquidity aggregator, like a lot of these early DeFi primitives that are required for a chain. Then you go from there. We have some games. We have a variety of things. I'm not even sure what all of these do, but Bera Baddies is a cool social network, very female oriented. And you can see there's a lot of energy being attracted to this. And part of this is because of the proof of liquidity. Now, what is proof of liquidity? Here it is as a very basic model. And the concept comes down to this two-token model. They have Bera, the asset that is paid for gas. You can think of this like Ethereum, like Solana. You hold Bera and you use it to pay for activities within the ecosystem. But just in the same way that Ethereum and Solana can be staked across the ecosystem to earn more Ethereum and Solana, it creates this sort of like negative loop impact. And it doesn't drive liquidity in a way that's controlled. Berachain is seeking to add levers to growth by using this new model. Now, what you do is you stake Bera across a variety of implications. This could be validators using Bera to validate the blocks and provide network security. A lot of this, as we've learned from DeFi, is also going to come from token pools. So let's say a Bera Honey pool, for example. Honey is their stablecoin. You can think of it as a USDC. If you put Bera and Honey into a liquidity pool, you will earn the second token, BGT, which is the governance token. So this means that anyone that wants to participate in the governance has to be an active participant in the ecosystem. You can earn BGT by staking to a validator. So if you're a validator and you have a lot of Bera, you can earn that BGT. It allows you to, again, actively participate in the ecosystem. If you're a liquidity provider, putting Bera against Honey or Bera against other application tokens or those application tokens against Honey, right? There's a lot of ways to pair these assets depending on what sort of incentives you want to provide. All of these active participants earn BGT. Now, the interesting thing, you can see it's a soul-bound governance token. So this means that any wallet that earns BGT has to hold it there. It's very much locked into that wallet to force it to be a continual participant. Now, how does that make you money? One of the core features is you can swap BGT for Bera. It doesn't go the other way. So if you have all this BGT earned and you want to sell, you can convert it to Bera. You can exit out. However, that BGT is tough to earn and you can't buy it. So it's quite a difficult thing to arrange. Now, what gets really fun is that the BGT is an incentive lever. I talked about that lever pull. Other applications can apply through a whitelisting process to produce that BGT reward. Now, even more so, as you earn BGT, you can go to a validator and you can boost their validation perspectives. If you find that they're a very good provider to the network, you can take that BGT and you can begin to lever it even further by saying, I'm going to contribute to this validator. The more BGT staked to the validator, the larger it grows, the better their rewards can be. In this way, they've created this BGT token as that lever to create incentives. If a new app launches, they can apply to offer these BGT rewards. In that sense, they can say, hey, I want to bootstrap liquidity. Put your Bera and your Honey to work here. Again, that liquidity inside of a pool is allowing the application to grow. It is its financial bandwidth. So without that liquidity, these apps really can't perform in the way that we expect them to. Obviously, the compute side will happen, but the financial part, that might be mired in some sort of low liquidity environment that just doesn't allow them to cross that threshold and click and then grow. So they can apply and say, hey, we're a new app. We want to incentivize liquidity. They get through the votes. Basically, the whitelist process is through decentralized voting against the validators, and they get permission to emit BGT. And they can say, hey, we're going to emit at certain rates. We're going to use this as a bootstrapping mechanism. And maybe at some point they remove that BGT reward, right? They no longer need it because you can earn APY on the pools themselves. And that will pay out in BGT. And then you can earn a separate APY on the BGT depending on where you use it to boost. Again, all of these earnings, the risk you take to earn more is to lock them up, is to commit them to the ecosystem. So it is going to reward you for that lockup period for taking your money out of the ability to exit the position, right? And it has a way to both reward liquidity providers as well as validators, as well as all market participants in a really fun and novel way. So this is proof of liquidity, and it's pretty cool. And to see it play out in action, I'm just going to dive right back into their website. They've got everything here just like from the get-go, so it's really easy. If we hop into dApps, we've got the Bera Hub, right? So I have a test wallet set up. I've funded about $100 of Bera into it. I just went to Coinbase, I spent $100, and I said, let's see what we can do here. So from the swap, a very easy first lesson, right? You can buy Bera, send it right to your wallet. It's a MetaMask wallet. It's an EVM wallet. They all work. And suddenly it's very easy to swap into Honey. Now, remember, the majority of the proof of liquidity is that they want to incentivize liquidity providers. That's always going to be two-sided. That means Bera and Honey. And there's always going to be risk. Liquidity pools have what is called impermanent loss. Let's say I have equal positions, Bera and Honey, and everyone wants the Honey. They're going to buy all the Honey out of that pool and leave me with Bera. Now, in reality, it would probably go the other way around because Honey's the stable coin, but that does mean that the more desirable of the two assets might leave the pool providers with actually the less desirable asset, right? It's sitting in a basket and everyone takes all the candy that they want. You're left as the basket supplier with the leftover candy. So there is something to think of there. Now with Honey, with using a stablecoin pair, that does change the dynamics. But very easy to swap, very simple to pull this off. Then you go straight to a pool, right? They've made this as simple as it could possibly be. And I look through it and there's all the incentivizations. And of course, BGT APR, that is the incentive to reward people for providing liquidity. At this point in time, they have a very high APR, 99%, going towards the Bera and the Honey. Now, you do have to go to WBera. This is just like Ethereum. ETH applications cannot use Ethereum itself. So in order to capture that value, they created a new asset called Wrapped Ethereum that can engage with the smart contracts. Same thing here. So you've got to convert your Bera to Honey and WBera. Whatever. One nice thing about Berachain is the transaction fees are always consistent. They're very, very cheap. They're very, very fast. So you're not paying a lot of money like you would on Ethereum to make these conversions. The pool APR looks like about 19.7%. So that's pretty nice on what it's paying for you. But then there's also BGT APR. I know there's like multiple things going on here. It's a bit confusing, but this is saying that the pool is generating around 20% fees from people swapping between WBera and Honey, right? Those transactions are taking fees, they're earning, and it's rewarding this pool. At the same time, there's the programmatic APR, which is BGT, right? The second token that they can incentivize you with. So while you're earning APR on just your underlying assets, it's also going to give you this BGT stake. Now, you go in here, you deposit, pretty straightforward. You get a receipt token and you can stake. That will start to earn you BGT. I just have this simple rewards button up here, so it's very nice, very easy. I can view my breakdown. And what I did was I took my $100 and I basically said I'm putting 48% in WBera, 48% in Honey. I need that extra 4% just in Bera as gas so that I can keep actually doing things on the network. Now I put that into a pool and that has started to gain me BGT. So I've got 22 cents. I did this yesterday. It's not hugely enormous, but cool. Let's claim it. Let's see what we can do. Great. So I've now claimed some BGT, and this is pretty cool, right? Because I'm earning fees across the board on both of these assets. Now that I have BGT, I can go to a validator, right? They want to incentivize people to support the security of the network. So I look at validators, and validators are also their own market. They have to incentivize you to come and join. So a lot of these larger validators are putting out some pretty significant emissions. These 13,000 BGT are what's being emitted, and if you want, you can capture a little bit of that yourself. So if I did want to go in, I could go and again take the BGT that I earned and contribute it to a validator. The more BGT that goes to a validator, the more secure they look like. Again, this is the marketplace of securing the network. I'm going to put my very paltry BGT to use, this 0.3, just 22 cents, but screw it, I'm going to take what I can get. And I'm going to begin generating some yield off of that BGT. As the validator continues to produce blocks, they will earn BGT from the network, and some of that will flow back to me. So anyway, you can see the way that they've added another mechanism to incentivize people to move their capital to certain locations. Again, liquidity is that bandwidth of the financial markets. It's really exciting. It's really interesting. We're going to see if it works. Now, what's very interesting is Berachain launched only a month ago, maybe even shorter. I'm just kind of ballparking here. They have already gotten in here with a lot of the major networks. The TVL, so the total value locked, the amount of capital that has been contained inside the system through the incentives of proof of liquidity, is sitting at around 3.2 billion, right? We have Ethereum with 48 billion, major network. Bitcoin at 5. I mean, like, and this would be Bitcoin DeFi, just a heads up. But all of these networks, they're pretty significant, right? Base only has 2.7. So Berachain's coming out higher than Base. That's pretty wild. Sui, which is like taking on a whole new compute mechanism, saying really fast or really cheap, 1 billion. And Bera sitting here, they've done so well, so fast, and that's because Liquidity in their ecosystem has another mechanic behind it, something to motivate, to incentivize, and that's what's really important. What's wild is you look at Berachain with their 3.2 billion, come over here to the price, and we see their fully diluted valuation is 3.2. I mean, we don't usually see the fully diluted valuation is, imagine all of the tokens inside of the Berachain ecosystem trade at $6.48. It's very rare to see this number and the TVL inside of it be in competition. Really, an FDV, it's a poor metric because those tokens aren't out. So this is like, you know, in the future when all the tokens are out and circulating, it's kind of imaginary and I don't love it. But the FDV should trade at a multiple, especially if the TVL is so strong. It should push that price up, right? We're speculating on the value inside the ecosystem with the fully diluted valuation. And the real TVL, the capital, is quite strong. Now, TVL is also a bit of a questionable metric. It's just like, okay, you incentivize people to put things onto your chain, put things, capital, but like, is that sticky? Hard to tell. Berachain's saying proof of liquidity is sticky. It's a new novel mechanism. So this is all really, really cool. And of course, they've just built out a masterful brand. When you go to their Twitter, I mean, look, everything is bared out. And it's just extremely consistent. And even here, a good friend of mine, David Choi, says Berachain spent time doing local community activation with the folks who run the venue, right? They're getting core to this. They had 50% plus local non-crypto audience with known brands and artists. Honestly, never seen an event like this. Impressed. If you want culture, this is what it looks like right now. When they present, when they do conferences, they're taking the motif into reality. They wear bear heads, right? So you got Berachain's Rise with the developer Smokey the Bera. And if I go down a little farther, I bet I can find something. As we can see here, you've got Smokey in this bear hat. So they, again, are blurring these worlds between the digital and the real. I think it's extremely impactful. It's effective. And coming from the NFTs initially, they really grokked community. And then they looked at the chains themselves and what they thought was right versus wrong with them, how to improve it. They came up with proof of liquidity. And this is honestly a very big experiment. However, I will say they launched at a very high valuation, and this is not financial advice. I'm really here for the tech, and I do think it's novel and fun, but we can see that they came up here listing at nearly $13.27, and they've actually been one of the more robust players, right, since finding a floor here at $5, which was pretty quick. Ooh, $4.79, let's call it 5. But that all happened quickly. So they did price discovery. People sold the tokens. There was a very big airdrop. Maybe we call it a bear drop. And since then, it's actually been performing pretty well, right? It came all the way back to like $8. Obviously, we now have the impact of the modern market, but it's still up today. So maybe this tech is working. Maybe it's actually in the middle of price discovery, and in this bear market, it's one of the stronger assets, which is really exciting to see because I do think it's fun. I do think it's novel, like Abstract Chain and Pudgy Penguins. It's got a lot of applications building on top of it. It has this extremely strong brand awareness. Again, if you saw a penguin or if you saw a bear from across the street, it's the Golden Arches rule, right? 500 feet away, you're going to recognize that brand. So they're doing a phenomenal job. It's a lot of fun on chain. You can take your assets and put them to work. It is a bit crazy because you have to split them into 2 assets in order to stake to a pool. You obviously get BTT. If you want to unwind this and move back to money, fiat, you have to undo quite a few steps. However, the rewards are there. The incentive is high because the network is young and they want to onboard users. And I just think they have a really cool, novel idea around proof of stake, which is this proof of liquidity. And if you're a new app building, that just gives you so many more resources to say, hey, can I launch a vault that rewards people and incentivizes them to come here to create that initial stickiness that we need for our app to grow and become amazing. So anyway, guys, check it out. It's, fun, it's interesting, it's growing like crazy, it's extremely well capitalized, so you're going to see a lot of apps coming out of there. And of course, they've got this edginess starting with Bong Bears that I think can extrapolate across the ecosystem really well. Whether or not proof of liquidity works, phenomenally and is the new way and changes the entire world, I couldn't tell you. But I do think it's a really interesting approach. The more you dive into it, the more you can appreciate those levers and how they can be used to help incentivize growth, which is what we need a lot of in this industry. And with that, guys, everything else is pretty nuts. So good luck out there, and I'll see you tomorrow.